We have a missionary here with us. He's been staying here on the property for about the last 2 weeks. And, back whenever Pastor Keith was the pastor here, he really put an emphasis on missions. And Trinity started to really get excited about missions. And we started supporting missionaries and stuff. But Nick here is a different type missionary. And I'm going to let him come up and share just for a few minutes of what God has called him to do here in the United States and what he's doing out here right now. The month of March, we're going to be putting the emphasis on some missions. So, Nick, come up. Sue, are you going to interpret for him? Okay, she's got a mic.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Pastor Chuck, for allowing us to be here. Wow. And this wonderful group of people here this morning. We sense your love here. This is my wife. I'm Nick. And my wife, Peggy. We have applied to become US missionaries. For 34 years, we pastored a deaf church in the Northwest, in Washington State. We retired and we thought maybe we were finished, but God called us to become US missionaries as evangelists full-time. There are no deaf evangelists in the U.S. that are full-time. So we are the first ones, full-time evangelists. I am from a third-generation deaf family. Our kids are grown up already, and the Lord has blessed our children, and they all serve the Lord. My second son is a pastor, a youth pastor, at North Community Church in Washington, D.C. The oldest son, he plays the piano for his church, so they are typical hearing, while we are deaf parents. But God has worked in their lives. So now I'm planning to travel through churches to support the deaf, to share his love and to show his love to the deaf all over the United States, to support them and the different churches and so on, and be an evangelist and be witnessing to them. Did you want to add something? He's asking his wife. God's power is awesome, and it's at work within the deaf community. Do you know that only 2% of the deaf community are Christians? So we need you to team with us and join with us and support us through prayer especially and financial support. We're the only two deaf, and we just can't do it alone as we travel to raise our support. There's a large expo that many deaf go to, and we would like to provide Bibles there, and we plan to travel and visit those different expos around the U.S. Recently, we've gone to different towns here in Florida, and the deaf are just so excited to meet us, and because they tend to be very lonely and isolated in their different places of life and employment, and so we want to encourage them in the Word all over the U.S. She's mentioning about COVID. We started itinerating in 2020 just before COVID hit, and we've been kind of stuck, as you know, COVID, and as we've been doing some vlogging and so on, trying to get the word out, and just to share his love through that. COVID changed everything, but we see that God is still at work, and it's just so wonderful to see. We think of it as being negative, but with God, God can change anything negative into a positive. There are many deaf, as she said, that are lonely and isolated, and so we want to reach out to all of them, to every person in the USA if we can, and meet them. When we meet them, they are so excited to just chat, and they don't have pastors. They may use Zoom or go to church just sporadically. Did you want to say something about teaching a sign? I want to teach you a sign That's the I. That's a universal sign. I. The L means love, and the Y is you. So that's the I love you sign. Jesus loves you. So we can use that. Oh, my heart pitter-patters when we say I love you to one another. And here's Jesus loves you. God's power is just so powerful through prayer. Just only that 2% of deaf so that know Jesus. And there's one university in Washington, D.C. It's called Gallaudet University. And we want to have the gospel to go all over the world for the deaf. And that in Washington, D.C. is one place where they do that, at Gallaudet University. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to stand here and share.
Yay.
Thank you.